Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Diana J. Noble, author of Evangelina Takes Flight and Chances in Disguise. And this is the first video I've ever made that I'm going to post today. Decided that it's time to come in fully to the 21st century and start with some videos and use technology the way that it can be used to kind of spread the word about my writing and my books. I'm real proud of them. And my second book, Chances in Disguise, was recently released by Arte Publico Press in October of 2021. But before I kind of get more into the books, I thought I'd just spend a little time introducing myself to you in case you've read the book or you're interested in reading either of the books and are interested to know a little bit about me. So I was born in Laredo, Texas, which is on the border between Texas and Mexico. That is where my father was born and raised, and actually where my grandmother, my abuelita, my dad's mother, lived when she left Mexico and fled into Texas during the Mexican Revolution, which is when the books, both of them, take place. I grew up in a bilingual household. Both my mother and father speak Spanish. My mother is all Mexican and my father is half Mexican. And the other half of my father is kind of an interesting story and explains why my maiden name was Jacobs. I get this response sometimes. People will say things like, well, you don't look Mexican to me, which I always think is an interesting remark in and of itself, because what exactly do Mexicans look like? They don't all look the same, I'll tell you that much. But with a maiden name like Jacobs, it's maybe a fair question. But my father's grandfather left Syria, which is today part of Lebanon, way back when. And when he came through Ellis Island, his last name was difficult for the people processing the paperwork to pronounce. And so they looked at the last name, which had a J-A in it, and they gave him the last name Jacobs. That's just what they wrote down for him. So his last name was originally Najaim, or Nachaim, N-J-A-I-M, and it became Jacobs. And so that is my maiden name. So that's where the J comes from, in Diana J. Noble. Now, I was really raised to be incredibly proud of my dual heritage, growing up both Mexican and American, and having both languages spoken in the home. Unfortunately, my parents spoke mostly Spanish, some English, and my brothers and I answered in English. And that's just kind of how we did it. And as a result, I wish I could go back and do it differently, but as a result, I speak good Spanish, but I'm not fluent in Spanish. I wish that I were, but I understand it very, very well, having grown up listening to it my whole life with my aunts and uncles and my grandmothers and so forth. So the first book that I wrote, Evangelina Takes Flight, I wrote quite a few years ago now. I think maybe I started in 2011 or so, and it took me 4 years to write, published by Arte Publico Press in 2017, is based loosely on my grandmother, my abuelita's life story, escaping Mexico during the Mexican Revolution in 1910, at the start of the revolution, which lasted 10 years. It ended in 1920. And it's filled not only with her story, but stories from my own childhood, things that I remember growing up Mexican-American. And it's got a lot of stories. My aunts and uncles are in here. My cousins are in here. I'm in here. Of course, they all have different names, but they're all included in the book. So I've always thought of it as kind of a love story to my own family. And it takes Evangelina, the protagonist, is actually the name of my other grandmother, my mom's mom, whose name I always thought was really beautiful. The second story that I wrote, the second novel, is a sequel, and it's called Chances in Disguise. It starts in 1915. Revolution is still going on, and Evangelina, the main character, is living in Southeast Texas, and she's gotten some medical training from the local town doctor, and the first scene opens up with her out in the countryside helping a woman deliver a baby. The baby's coming early, and Evangelina is the only one around with medical training, so she goes to help this woman, and that's where the story begins. I wrote the first chapter to be a bit of a cliffhanger, tried to make it really interesting so people would want to keep turning the pages, and I thought that I would read it for you now and hope that you enjoy it. All right? Okay, chapter 1, Dirty Field Rat. Ramona Healy, a woman I met just 2 hours ago, lays on a thin mattress in her one-room home, too tired to swat at the fly buzzing around her face. I grab the narrow handle of a corn husk fan and shoo it away. It moves onto a pair of pig's feet in the cast iron pot on the wood stove. The vinegary brine they cooked in gives off a sharp, repulsive smell. The wind whistles through the cabin sidewalls where the binding mud between the logs has crumbled and fallen away. I hand Mrs. Healy a ceramic cup filled with tea that Mexican curanderas, or healers, have used for centuries to ease pain. She turns it a bit to avoid the chipped edges and sips. After a thorough examination, I find no unusual bleeding or sign of infection, and her vital signs are stable. "Don't worry, I'll take care of you," I tell her. The tea helps with the pain, but it can only do so much. When the discomfort in her back increases and she can no longer carry on a conversation, I give her another herbal remedy I made myself that should dull the worst of it. She slides her thin arm across the bed and rests her hand on mine. Click, 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 the pendulum on the shelf clock swings. Beads of sweat appear on her forehead and lip, and her thin smile gives way to wild eyes and gritted teeth. The contraction starts as gentle as a breeze and grows like a twister picking up speed. I ask if she would like me to pray for her. She nods, so I pull out my rosary. "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus." Her lips move silently with mine. The cabin door swings open. Bang! A light-haired man with round spectacles and a goatee steps inside. "I'm Dr. Jedediah Morley. Who are you, and what are you doing here?" he barks and inspects me from head to foot through narrowed eyes. "Oh, dear God, you're nothing but a dirty Mexican field rat. How dare you masquerade as someone capable of treating a woman in this vulnerable state? Get away from her." I try to explain myself, why I'm here, how many births I've assisted with, my training with Doc Taylor and Seneca, but the man turns away. He opens his bag and pulls out a stethoscope, bandages, scissors, tweezers, and a syringe the length of a toothbrush. "Evangelina," Mrs. Healy murmurs, "will you stay with me?" "No, ma'am, this girl's not the least bit qualified," the doctor says, then points at the door. "Are you deaf, girl?" he shouts at me. "You don't belong here. You're a fraud and a danger to this woman. Now get out." "I'm sorry," I mouth to her as I put my things away and run outside, where I get on my bike and ride for the 2 hours it takes to get home. She'll be all right, I tell myself. She's with a real doctor now. I lay awake most of the night wondering how Ramona Healy and her baby are doing. Childbirth may be the most natural process in the world, but it can also be a dangerous one. She would have done fine had I stayed. I've delivered babies myself without any problems and assisted Doc Taylor with countless others. Dr. Morley had no right to order me out the way he did. Of course, he's a licensed physician and I am not. He's an adult, and I'm just 17. But still, his abrupt entrance and insult startled the patient and me. The early morning sun comes through the tiny holes in the lace curtains, and the smell of brewing coffee lures me to the kitchen. Mama wears an embroidered sky blue house dress and an apron with a rooster painted on one pocket and chickens with eggs on the other. It's the only apron she brought from our ranch in Mexico. One long black braid hangs down her back. A rusty-colored pottery bowl with machacado, shredded beef, sits nearby. She picks up the cutting board and pushes diced garlic and tomatoes into a cast-iron skillet on the stove. Next, she'll add the beef and cook it until it gets crispy, then fold in the raw eggs. I love the sound of the sizzle and the instant steam that spreads, a time-to-get-up smell that even sleepyheads like my little brothers Tomas and Domingo can't ignore. "Good morning, Mama," I say in Spanish, the language we speak at home. "Good morning to you, mija," Mama replies, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You were gone longer than I expected yesterday. I was beginning to get worried. I couldn't fall asleep until I heard you come in." "I'm sorry about that. I didn't expect to stay out that—" "Maria Elena?" Papa calls from the living room. "The sheriff just pulled up in front of our house." "Why would he come here?" Mama asks as she pulls the skillet off the heat and sets it on a back burner. My thoughts jump to my older brothers, Emilio and Enrique, working in the New Mexico coal mines. Are they all right? Papa opens the front door. The sheriff, gray-haired, tall, and thick around the middle, pushes past him. Excuse me, sir, what you want with us? Papa asks. The sheriff steps around Papa and faces me. Are you Evangelina de Leon? He asks. Yes, sir, I reply. You are hereby under arrest for the murder of Mrs. Otis Healy. What? Mrs. Healy is dead? I ask. Papa's eyes dart from the sheriff to me. Mija, what is he talking about? My older sister Elsa and younger brother Tomas shuffle into the room. Tomas in his rumpled pajamas, Elsa in her pink housecoat. You must be mistaken, sir. Mrs. Healy was alive when I left, I say. We can't verify that now, can we? The sheriff retorts. The woman's dead as a doornail. She asked me to stay with her, I say. There was nothing unusual about her labor. Her vital signs were normal. Who was Mrs. Healy? Papa asks. What about the baby? I cry. Doc Morley saved the infant, a boy. That man's a hero, the sheriff says. Mama holds her palms up, her eyes wide as nickels. I no understand. What she do? Why you talk to my daughter like this? Are you feeble-minded? She killed Ramona Healy, a woman with child. Dr. Jedediah Morley reported the crime to my office this morning. Mama shakes her head and looks at me to help her understand. Mama, they think I killed the patient I was with yesterday. She died after I left the woman's home. I translate for her. It must be a mistake. Es una mentira. That's a lie, Mama shouts. The sheriff yanks me halfway around, claps the handcuffs on my wrists, and walks me to the police wagon. Neighbors gather outside and stare. Where you take her? Mama pleads, following close behind. You people sure are stupid. Where do you think I'm taking her? The sheriff snarls. Wait, Papa yells as the sheriff pushes me into the wagon. Evangelina never hurt no one. Ivan, do something, Mama shrieks. She's just a child. She only 17, Papa says, rushing towards me. Sheriff Pearl grabs his gun with one hand and slams the wagon door shut with the other. Get back, senor, he says in a mocking Mexican accent, or I'll shoot your empty head clean off of your neck. The weight of the wagon shifts as the sheriff climbs up front. Hi-ya, he shouts. My body pitches back as the horse takes off with a jolt. We come for you, Mama yells. Thump, 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 thump. Someone's feet pound the road behind us. Where are you going? Tomas yells. Evangelina, don't go. His voice trails off as he falls farther behind. The clip-clop of the horse's hooves and the beating of my heart join together in terrifying rhythm. Did I kill Ramona Healy? All right, that's it. Chances in Disguise. It's a young adult historical fiction. It'd be perfect for like 8th grade, 9th grade classrooms. I would love for students all across the country and really all across the world to read about this history. It takes place during a fascinating and really tragic time in Texas history. And of course, the Mexican Revolution is the backdrop as well. There's a lot to think about in this book. I created a student guide that accompanies the book that is available on my publisher's website. It's artepublicopress.com. And you can learn more about me and about the books at my website, which is dianajnoble.com. DIANAJNOBLE.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and have a great day, night, morning, whatever it is for you, wherever you are. Happy day.